Hey, what's up YouTube? Zazubaar here. I'm gonna do something a little different today. I'm not for the first time in a while I'm gonna do a review without writing a script, and I've kind of gone to a point where I try not to do this too often because I feel more comfortable when I'm reading off a script, but I just decided to do this as kind of a leisurely review since I read this rather leisurely. And I'm gonna be doing a review of a kaiju comic book, specifically the Dark Horse edition of Godzilla King of the Monsters, or this big, kind of essential Dark Horse Godzilla called Godzilla Age of Monsters. And, I bought this with kind of a funny backstory to it. I got it recently, I think I got it, Saturday of this weekend. And, as a lot of you guys know, there's a Godzilla comic series that recently debuted called Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters, and that was published by IDW. And I actually went to my local comic book store with the intention of getting that, but apparently the publisher ran out of print. Yeah, everyone they intended to print sold out in like 3 days. So, and I asked them if I could go anywhere else to find it, and they said that it wasn't that they ran out. They said that the publisher ran out of books. So I guess I'm never going to be able to read Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters unless, of course, I just start with issue 2. But I really don't want to do that because if I start reading a comic book line, I want to start from issue 1. So I looked high and I looked low, and I was intent on buying a Godzilla comic that day. I hadn't read one in a while. And I looked around and I said to myself, okay, well, Marvel made a Godzilla comic book series, and I have the essential version of that, which means I have every issue. So, obviously don't want to buy that again. And then I remembered that Dark Horse did a line of Godzilla comics under the same exact title as the Marvel comics, making it extremely confusing. And if you look at the top of this book I bought, it's the same font as the Marvel Godzilla comics, so, and the same title again, so, a little confusing. Now, so, yeah, I realized that Dark Horse did a Godzilla comic line, and I really didn't expect them, my local comic store to have this, line they did, and they had it. They had both of these big, issues. I only bought one for now. I'm probably gonna go back there this weekend to buy the other one, but the one I bought from Dark Horse was Godzilla Age of Monsters, and I think I'm showing the cover right now. If I'm not, excuse me. I'll show it in a minute. But, yeah, so I bought this, and I thought it was kind of a funny backstory I wanted to tell. If any of you guys did buy Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters, just tell me how it is, because if it's really that good, I will start reading from issue 2 if I have to, but, so I bought this for now, and, I finished it in 1 day, because, I'm that much of a nerd, but, so yeah, I read it, and I'm gonna do a little review on it. Decided not to script this, mainly because I killed myself writing the ZMMR review for King Kong, so didn't feel like writing another script, but, so yeah, let's dig into Godzilla Age of Monsters. Now, this is a collection of about, let's see here, 10 issues of Godzilla King of the Monsters that most of them are actually done by different artists and different writing teams. However, if you read them, you'll see that they're all in the same continuity, and they all seem to follow the same storyline, just with different art and some different kind of levels of emotion and just kind of feeling. For the most part, Godzilla's design is the same throughout the entire book. It's based off the current Heisei Godzilla design that was being used around the time this line came out. If you look on the cover, that's clearly Godzilla 92. And that's one of the most badass versions of Godzilla, in my opinion. He's just so bulky and muscular and really just powerful looking, and I'm glad that they use it here, even though it came out around the time that those movies were being released, like Mechagodzilla 2 and Space Godzilla. And they're clearly inspiration for the stories that take place in this book. Like, there's G-Force in it, even though it's a lot different than the G-Force in the movies. There's most of the characters are Japanese, so clearly taking more inspiration from the Japanese films than the Marvel comics did, which for the most part had American characters, except for a couple. And I have to say I enjoyed this a lot more than I enjoyed the Marvel comics, mainly because it just felt more like the legit Godzilla to me. And quickly I'll go over the plot since it's a really long storyline that's called Age of Monsters. I'm not gonna go into too much detail. I'll just give you a bare bones synopsis. And basically, it starts with this with issue 1 of this giant rock being discovered at some construction site, and there's a scientist who's studying it, and apparently it's radioactive, and has a prophecy written on it which tells of an age of monsters coming, in which disaster monsters will appear. Which they made up a couple of monsters here because they obviously didn't have the rights to use any other monsters from the Godzilla series, so they made up 2. But I don't remember their names at this moment. But obviously the third one was Godzilla. But this is one thing I never really liked when it was done in other comic series I've read, and just other Godzilla properties, where he's not really his origin is a little different. Now basically what this book is saying is that Godzilla has been around for thousands of years. Now look, I know he's a dinosaur and he had to be around for millions of years, but what this implies to me, I don't know if I got the full extent of this. I wish if you guys, if I missed anything, just leave a comment below if I missed anything. But from what I got out of it was that the nuclear bomb didn't really create Godzilla in this continuity. Now, this is definitely not in continuity with the Heisei films, or obviously, I don't even think it's in continuity with the first Godzilla film, which most things are. I think even the Marvel Comics line referenced what happened in the first Godzilla film. But otherwise it was its own separate thing like this is. But this doesn't even seem to follow the first Godzilla film. Yeah, it mostly follows its own sense of continuity. It just kind of references that, although the first issue that it shows does document the first time Godzilla attacked, as well as an issue later on. But I don't really like that kind of Godzilla origin. It just pisses me off because it takes away the whole symbolism of Godzilla. However, one thing I do like is that they do say that the rock is radioactive, so I guess that kind of makes up for it, but still, it just pisses me off a little bit. However, the rest of the book is great, because they don't really reference that big rock again, even though it's what attracted Godzilla to the city, apparently, but, I just try to think of that as kind of the radioactivity attracting him, because in the Heisei films, Godzilla had to feed off nuclear energy, but again, I'm not going to really talk about that too often, because the rest of the book doesn't really reference his origin as much as just his existence and just his destructive capabilities. And he really is just a badass in this book. Nothing hurts him. He's just a complete and total badass. He goes around just destroying Japanese, and American cities, and one thing I liked that they did definitely get a grasp on was Godzilla's international destructive capabilities. Like, he doesn't just attack Japan like he does in the first issue. He attacks all over the world throughout the entire book. I mean, he goes from Japan to the West Coast to Canada. It's just great. And the art I want to talk about really quick. The art is beautiful. Now, obviously, the book I have is all black and white because it's a collection of a bunch of issues. So obviously, I don't think they could have done it in color, even though they might have been able to. I'm not really too sure, but it didn't really bother me. The Marvel line of Godzilla books I have is also in black and white, and it didn't really bother me then either. But again, I like this a lot better than I did the Marvel line, because it's a little bit more respectful to what Godzilla was before this comic, even though it's not in continuity with what I can tell is any of the films. But yeah, the art is really beautiful. I mean, I love the way most of the artists draw the Godzilla 90s design, even though the first issue kind of does its own thing, and it actually looks more like some of the pre-production drawings they did for Godzilla on the very first 1954 film. But it's definitely still Godzilla. I mean, it's not like it doesn't look anything like him. He's just a little bit too, But the art gets a lot better when we get to issue 3, I think it is, Godzilla vs. Gekido Jin, and it's just absolutely gorgeous, the art. It's also my favorite issue because it's just so much damn fun. It's a cool concept that I never really saw them do in the Godzilla films, which was kind of weird. But it's just there's this Japanese mythology around these things called Onis, which are monsters that are like kind of demonic warriors. and they're apparently giant. I mean, not Godzilla size, but they're definitely big. And this particular issue, does something really genius. It has Godzilla fight this Oni, and it's really just really cool. And it's something that I'm shocked they never explored in the films, of having Godzilla fight something like this. I mean, there were lost projects that dealt with Onis and Godzilla fighting one, but the closest we ever got to some kind of Oni-like mythology around a monster Godzilla fought was in GMK, and that was with the Guardian monsters, and I'm not even going to get into that, but it's just a really fun issue, and it's my favorite issue in the book. I like what's done with G-Force. They're made a little bit like something like the Fantastic Four, with the way they're kind of all scientists. They go around studying Godzilla. They're not really too violent. They just kind of want to study him rather than kill him, even though they bring in a Mechagodzilla substitute called Mechasaur, and, or is it Robosaur? I think it's Mechasaur, but, I might be wrong. But, it's kind of a substitute for Mechagodzilla. It looks cool, but again, it really can't top Mechagodzilla, but, it's cool looking, and it's a nice way to substitute. Godzilla and it fight twice in the entire line, and, it's really cool. But, another thing I like they did, which was clearly inspiration from the Heisei films, was in, I think it was issue 4, when they injected Godzilla with this poison. And this was by some scientist who was a kid in the first issue when Godzilla first attacked. And then in the 4th issue, she's like this old woman. And she comes in and she injects Godzilla with this poison. They never really give it a name, but it doesn't kill Godzilla, but it weakens him. And he starts like getting really weak and delirious even. He starts like, blood starts pouring from his mouth. It's really, really disgusting, but it's kind of epic at the same time. And basically, it kind of reminded me of the anti-nuclear energy bacteria from Godzilla vs. Biollante. And of course, you know, that's one of my favorite movies, and of course, any reference to that I'm going to get a kick out of. But yeah, it's just a really great line and just really engaging. I like how serious they take the whole threat of Godzilla, even though there's a lot of silly things that get introduced, like the Mechasaur. And in the last issue, there's this thing called Hero Zero, which is just like this kid who becomes this Ultraman type thing, and maybe even a little Iron Man-esque, but and fights Godzilla. It's a little silly, but it's you know, it manages to retain some sort of seriousness, because, you know, obviously Godzilla's still killing people. And what I like is just like this thing's motivation, this Hero Zero thing, and it basically wants to kill Godzilla because the kid who's driving this big metal man or whatever, Godzilla killed his friend, and it's a nice serious motivation for an otherwise really silly issue, and you know, it's just nice to have that. It kind of shows that the writers are taking this very seriously, and it's just a really great collection of issues, and I highly recommend it to anyone who's just a Godzilla fan or likes really good comics. It's a little, I will admit that the dialogue is a little at some points, but it's a comic, and, you know, it's not a particularly brilliantly written comic. It's not like Watchmen, but it's definitely worth it for anyone who's a Godzilla fan. It's just really cool to see him taken very seriously and get done justice in a comic. And I'm really pissed that I haven't gotten to read Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters yet. Reading this definitely makes me want to. And next week, maybe I'll do a review of the next book I'm going to buy, Godzilla Past, Present, Future. So look out for that. But if I'm going to rate this on the ZMMR scale, I'm going to give Godzilla Age of Monsters I'll give it a 4 out of 5. It's really, really fun and really cool to read. I highly recommend it again to anyone who's a Godzilla fan. One quick thing I want to talk about, since again I've been talking to hell about the 2012 movie, is that if they're gonna draw inspiration from anything that's not one of the films, look at this. I mean, this just has a lot of really cool screen potential. And if they want to tell like an original story, fine, but look at something like this. It takes Godzilla really seriously, does a lot of really cool things with them, pays homage to classic Godzilla stories, and it has a lot of great screen potential. I don't want them to like lift the entire plot and characters and just events in this book from to take it into the movie. If they do if they took inspiration from this, I think it's a really cool thing though. it has a lot of screen potential. Again, if they did decide to make a movie based on this book, I would be really pleased with it. So again, I highly recommend this to all Godzilla fans. If you didn't get a chance to pick up Godzilla Kingdom of Monsters #1 this weekend, this is definitely a good substitute. Godzilla Age of Monsters. It's a big collection of Dark Horse issues, and reading it makes me want to read all the Dark Horse Godzilla books now. I don't know how many of them there are, even if this is just this and Past, Present, Future is the only two, which I think there's more, but I'll have to find out. So sorry if I talked about a little off-topic things. I just this is what happens when you don't script a video. But so I hope you enjoyed my review. Again, I'm gonna give Godzilla Age of Monsters a 4 out of 5. I highly recommend it to any Godzilla fan out there who's also a comic book nerd. So thanks for watching, and check out my review of Son of Kong coming later this week on ZMMR. Thanks for watching. Zazubaar out.